this Saturday morning with a few highlights from the end of Collection 2 and a preview of Collection 3. Your first assignment for Collection 3 is due on Wednesday night. That'd be your initial annotations to Salon, and your first reading response will be due Friday night next. That would be February 6th and 8th, respectively. Wanted to point out one thing I happened to notice when I was going back through everything on Blackboard. I had misplaced a study site on Rollinson. Apologize for that. I have since moved it into what you're looking at here is the web links for Unit 2. So it's here now, and I encourage you to take a look at it after the fact. It's got lots of good stuff about Mary Rollinson, so feel free. I had mistakenly placed it in Unit 3, but speaking of Unit 3, external links, they are pretty extensive. So if you go over to web links, and I think you've been doing this already, if you haven't, these become more extensive and more useful as we get further into the course. So under Unit 3 external links, you'll see a number of things. The New England Primer as it originally appeared, Jonathan Edwards' resolutions in their entirety, full text of Franklin's autobiography, some head notes that I wrote for a head note that I wrote for another anthology a few years ago on Thomas Jefferson, the Colonial Williamsburg site, the Give Me Liberty speech, which now is part of Salon, so this is just another version of it. The first inaugural address of Jefferson, this enormous Manifest Destiny cluster, which was part of this project that I did for this other anthology, which actually, if you open this up, you'll see it's got a bunch of documents, which would take you further into Manifest Destiny than you probably ever would want to go. But if you get interested in that as a theme for your major essay, you'll want to know that that's there if you need it. A show called the Thomas Jefferson Hour. I don't know if you're aware of this. I think it's still going on our independent station here in town. I'm pretty sure the site is still up, but it's a guy that impersonates Thomas Jefferson and answers call-in questions as he believes Jefferson would have. A famous letter from Benjamin Banneker, African-American, who wrote to Jefferson, and Jefferson's reply to Banneker. So just some additional texts that sort of support the readings from Jefferson and Franklin and Edwards and Henry that make up the bulk of Unit 3. So feel free to take a look at that. And if you haven't gotten in your group discussion board post, I saw about 12 so far as of last night's deadline. Please feel free to do that over the weekend for partial credit for Group 1 and Group 2. I think I had 5 from Group 1 and 7 from Group 2 so far. So come on in and join that discussion. And there were some good summative evaluations from several students in Group 1 and Group 2. One in particular I want to commend was in Group 2, GR2. I thought Brandon did a particularly good job here, kind of summing up a lot of the, as he called it, the deeper dive into the religious views of the people mentioned in them. So good job, Brandon, on that. Let me go over to Salon and show you a couple of highlights that are showing up in Salon. Let me pull that up and show you some things that are going on there. I think 8 of you or 9 of you, I think, altogether answered. I'm in dashboard right now, the dashboard mode, and under responses. And as you know, you see all the questions that I asked in Unit 2. The very first question, I think, elicited the most responses. What is each writer's purpose for writing? And this is one of the features of Salon that I like. And it works a little bit better than trying to wade through people's responses to individual questions on Blackboard. So I encourage you, near the end of each unit, to take a look at sort of a summative description of what various classmates, group mates said in response to this question, to each question. And, there's a different number of questions for different number of responses for each question. But this one, the very first one, tended to get the most responses. Some of the other questions, though, did get 1 or 2 responses from folks. So appreciate that. And you can certainly look at some of those additional responses as you get time. And, a lot of times we'll move on from a unit or a collection of readings, but it'll still be important to have this on the record, because when you go back and start writing about a writer, it'll be nice to have your classmates and group mates' responses to look at. And to that end, I just want to take a quick look at the menu here, if I can get over there and take a look at folks' responses to a couple of key moments in the. Sorry about that. Let me try to get there as quick as I can. One of the things that I noticed was there was a lot of response, of course, at the very beginning to Harriet's text, and then Rowlandson got a lot more responses near the end of the process, so that was good. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see, there's a lot of activity right in here at the very beginning. As a matter of fact, there's a way to kind of gauge how many people responded to various lines in the text. I think you're probably aware of that. If I go to the view mode here, it's being a little bit bulky right now, I'm afraid. Let me try to get you over there to the view mode so you can actually look at what I'm talking about. Near the end of every unit, you should definitely take a look at things like when you're seeing a lot of activity, like right here, some religion they have already, which although it be far from the truth, yet being as it is, there is hope. It may be the easier and sooner reformed. Down here where my cursor is, when you click on that, you see, of course, a lot of classmates weighing in on that line. A lot of you felt that line was a particularly telling moment about Harriet's view of religion, something of a blind spot, and something of a theme of Harriet's text, where he doesn't really recognize, nor do his fellow settlers in the Roanoke colony really recognize a lot about what's going on in the native culture regarding religion and even regarding their manner of warfare. And there's this sort of overconfidence that shows up here. If there fall out any wars between us and them, what their fight is likely to be, we having advantages against them in so many manner of ways, as by our discipline, our strange weapons and devices else. Especially by ordnance great and small, it may be easily imagined. By the experience we have had in some places, the turning up of their heels against us and running away was their best defense. And a few of you commented on that as well. Diana and Rebecca commented that these are basically telling moments, a blind spot, as Diana tagged it, where he feels like the manner of war is going to be rather one-sided in the favor of the colonizers. And we don't exactly know what happened to that colony, but it didn't end well, so we'll see. There were a few more comments about Rowlandson near the end as well that sprang up, I think, more in the follow-up annotation period. So I appreciate that. One other little discovery that I think we made, if I can do this fairly quickly, in the dashboard, that little eye that I find very useful to kind of sum up all of the activity that went on in the course. If we let that come up for a second, I believe it was Becky who discovered recently that there's a way of helping yourself know not only what activity has happened over here. This is sort of the default that comes up. So if you come in for your follow-up annotations and you want to see, okay, what's happened since I last commented? Let's say you're Becky and you commented here on the 26th, and you know that's the last time you checked in, and then you want to see when you come back on the 29th, what else has happened in here. There's a way to do it in activity. There is also a way, as Becky pointed out, to do it in time. If you click over here on time, and in fact go to advanced, you can actually do things like show exactly, you can slide along this bar and determine, when things have happened, and you can decide where to find the last activity, and it shows up over here depending on where you want to time that. So there's lots of little tricks of the trade that you can find. One last thing while I've got you for this particular example. I had a question along the way a few days ago about the Oxford English Dictionary, or about what the best dictionary might be to look at some of these antiquated texts. Let me show you real quick how to get to the OED in case you don't know. And this is a good piece of advice for you just generally. Among the many things that you have access to as a J. Sargent Reynolds student, if you just come into Reynolds.edu, the main page, click on Library, and then when you're on the library page, if you haven't had a lot of experience with this, I encourage you to either go to databases up here or more databases down here. Either way will get you to a search, and go to databases A through Z. And when that comes up, you should see under O, okay, are you with me? Under O, you will see Oxford English Dictionary. Now, this is that massive, you've seen this in libraries in hard copy and reference sections, 22-volume OED. This is the one, of course, that goes into the etymological history of every word and archaic words, especially useful, I think, for English 241, where we are looking at some older stuff. Now, I have told you it's going to get easier starting in Unit 3, so not to worry. But if you just want to see how, if Franklin's using a word, for instance, there's several important words in Franklin's autobiography for next week, where he defines certain traits or habits of mind that he thinks people should develop. And it's kind of interesting to look up when he uses the word humility or abstinence or something like that in the course of his text. It might be interesting to look at how it was actually being used at the time that he was writing the autobiography. So if you click on OED, then you're in to this wonderful resource all online where you can basically then just do a search of a word. So if you look at something like humility, for instance, and I have not done this in advance, so I don't know what's going to come up. But it'll tell you the etymology. It'll talk about where it came from. You can go into even more depth on the etymology. You can see where it was actually, when it was first used in around 1315. It shows you all of these previous uses of the word over time. You can see it as it's used in Shakespeare. And then each of these separate definitions has various uses over time. So it's a wonderful resource, and to get there, it's all waiting for you in your library resources. Again, that's library, and then databases, and then A through Z, and then O, and then Oxford English Dictionary. So those steps will get you to some really in-depth definitions of words. And I'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.